if it all goes wrong next season, say they're bobbing around sort of 7th or 8th, the natural tendency would be to say, oh, well, that just shows what a great job Klopp did. And to an extent, that'll be true. But I do think, to an extent, and it's to a minor extent, Alex Ferguson's legacy is slightly tainted by what came next. That the last sort of 3 or 4 years of his reign at United, I think in retrospect now, they look like the drift beginning. And his personality was enough to drive him over the line, but the squad maybe wasn't quite as good as it could have been. He wasn't getting the investment from the Glazers that was required. And that's playing personnel, but also, as we saw very clearly last week, the roof, the general infrastructure. And I think what he handed on to Moyes maybe wasn't quite as good as we thought it was at the time. Because at the time, everybody was saying, oh, he's handing on over this young squad, and they've got Wilfried Zaha, and they've got Kagawa, and it looked like a really promising squad. And then very quickly, it looked very ordinary. I don't think that will happen with Liverpool, but if it did, then you look at that. You could look at it two ways. I guess it depends how exactly what happens. Whether we see just what Klopp was doing with a much lower wage bill than City have, or you see that actually his the program of rebuilding he's initiated maybe hasn't been quite as impressive as it might have been, and we'll only know that in a year or two, maybe even longer.
Is that something that would somewhat damage somebody's legacy because that manager is saying, it's not my job, I'm out of here, I'm out the gap, this is not really my problem? Is that the specific element that would somewhat damage Alex Ferguson's legacy, and if things were to go all right, Liverpool Klopp's?
I don't really think that's what's happened in either case. I think with Ferguson, it was a case of the malign influence of the Glazers had begun, and he was not resisting it. We didn't. I think as outsiders, we didn't even really realise how much there was to be resisted there. So I don't think it's a sort of not my job, I'm off. I think it was difficult, and maybe he didn't handle it quite as well as we thought he had.